sorry for forgetting about the record thing. Okay, great. So I just started recording. So we have three things I just mentioned, three different authorities that you are trying to apply to. Ministry of Works, Electricity and Water Authority, the municipality, and you also have your own engineer. Okay, well, I mean, you already have an agreement with the contractor that he also does the job, and you also have an engineer who has your papers, who also is helping and supporting building your home. Now imagine with this all five different entities, what kind of a network that you need to ensure to build your home within 1 year only. طبعا, it is very difficult. It is very difficult to arrange between all that. But if you have some kind of an activity network diagram, this would help a lot. This would help a lot so that you can achieve your goal of having the efficient and the fastest process. Now, after all, what my introduction towards the activity network, we need to draw this general diagram that you can see in front of you. So now it is one diagram that consists of arrows, and it's also the same diagram that consists of activities. So it consists of arrows and it also consists of activities. Now, within this arrow network diagram, I need to consider which one has the critical path. And usually the critical path, sometimes you look for the longest and sometimes you look for the shortest path. Shortest path, that means the fastest way to achieve your goal. However, the longest path, sometimes you consider it. Why? Because you're going to say that I will not have my home ready with the shortest path. يعني مثلا, it will take the municipality 1 month to provide you. I will give you another example. You go to Electricity and Water Authority. The connection to water takes 1 month. The connection to electricity takes 2 months. Now, with this example, very simple one, you cannot go to your home except after 2 months. Even though that you have water, but you cannot go to your home except after 2 months. Now you're taking the longest path, which is the critical path in this case. Why? Because your home will not be ready except with water and electricity. And electricity will only be available after 2 months, not after 1 month. So sometimes the critical path takes the longest path. It is very similar to the reactions when we talk about the slower reaction. So the one which is the slowest, it is considered. Why? Because it is the one which is dominant. All other reactions, if they happen fast enough, it is still not good enough, because there's still one slow reaction that becomes dominant, because the reaction will not be complete except with all reactions together, and all reactions together means the slowest one should also be with them. This is actually very similar to the example of the wolf, when they walk together and they migrate from one place to another, and they have the slowest one, which is our elder ones or the younger ones, and they need to walk with a certain speed that is acceptable to everyone, even though that they can go with a higher speed. So that is the critical path management. Now with the PERT management, which is program evaluation and review technique. So we have the PERT management. It's just an evaluation technique, right? It's an evaluation technique where you see that how many processes are in parallel. Can we cancel one of the processes which is in parallel? Can we merge? And that was my discussion with my wife yesterday, when I was discussing with her that why couldn't she merge the application to have all to have the electricity, water, sewage, اللي هو البواليع تحت, which they call them sanitary, to have all the connection. Instead of applying 3 different places, the applicant, which is me and you, they apply on one place on the e-government site, and those papers, just they go through the pipeline all electronically. They go in parallel with all three. And actually that was, I think it was a good idea, and we are going to start with this idea and see how it goes. So that is part of the analyzing. So yesterday our discussion and my discussion with my wife was the PERT discussion. So we are doing some kind of an evaluation technique, and one of the discussions that we were talking about was the precedence diagrams. Precedence, that means there's an activity that happens after another activity. They cannot be in parallel. They need to be in series. And this happens, okay? There's one activity that depends on the other activity. You cannot start painting if you did not put the tiles, okay, at home. Because if you put the painting, paint your home, and you do your tiles next, you're going to have everything dusty, and all your paint will turn to black. And this is why they always talk about painting to be the last thing to be done. So there are always things that comes in precedence. They come after each other. They come in series, and this is where we talk about the precedence diagrams. Hello. So now talking about all that, I think so we are ready now to give examples. You can read this by the end as you want, but it's always best to see the examples and see how things are done. Now, for the example that you have here, generally, I know it's very strange for you to look at things which look like that. This is like something new for you. These are called like nodes, like 1, 2, 3 there. So, so we call those as nodes, and of course the arrows are arrows. Okay, so that is very clear. And we have those nodes, which are the number ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So these are the nodes. The numbers that are sitting here within the arrows reflect the time. Okay, so it gives you an idea about the time, how much time it takes from this to that. Time could be days, could be minutes. It depends on what is your unit. So if I would say that this is days, which makes more sense here, so that takes 10 days. Okay, we are going to go to the details of it. So this 10 days, 20 days, 20 days. We'll come back to this process. We're just trying to understand these blocks. So the first thing, the numbered rectangles are nodes and represent events or milestones. Okay, so these like are milestones. It means that from 1 to 2, I finish creating the schedule. Now you can write here in number 2 creating schedule, whatever you feel better in doing that. However, this is a very beautiful way of presenting it, saying that from 1 to 2 I'm going to create the schedule. Then what I'm trying to do with this whole diagram here, is to have a software program that I'm going to be testing it later. Of course, when we talk about a software, for example, e-learning system in a school. Okay, and I'm giving this example because as a board of director of one of the schools, we just signed an agreement with we signed with them 6 months ago, and they're still working on it. So when we started the job with them, the aim of the job was what? Number 11. The aim of the job is to have an e-learning system in our school. E-learning system is something as you can see, or what I'm doing with you now through Microsoft Teams, for example. So I need to know how to teach you and want to assess you and so on. I'm talking about university is much easier than school, because I think so all of you are old enough to know how to enter through Teams and click and so on. And you have few lectures per day, which is different from schools that they have lectures, 8 lectures per day or 7 lectures per day, and they are following up each other without any breaks. So now to produce this e-learning system at the end, so they started creating a schedule of what they are going to do exactly for the whole process. And then they start programming. There's a lot of programming. Why do we have programming if we have Microsoft Teams and Zoom? Yes, there are some schools which went with Zoom and Microsoft Teams, and they have succeeded. And myself, like in Schweifert school, they use Teams, and in a creativity private school, we decided to use Zoom, for example. Not for example, we decided to use Zoom, and we have our own system that is interconnected. It is Google Classroom that is interconnected with Zoom. In Al-Falah school, for example, we use Zoom with some interaction with some other software that you also have in the school. In Canadian school, I know you hear many schools, but I work as a board of directors there. That's why I have examples in my head. So in Canadian school, we use a system that is provided by Apple. Because we have an agreement as a Canadian school, which is supported by the Canadian government in Canada, and we are part of that network of the school, where we can use Apple products, which has its own e-learning also module. So why did I explain all that? Because all of that needs programming. Even with the Zoom, it's not direct that everything is ready. You need some little kind of programming. And when you need programming, you need to test the code. And when you test the code, then you need to test the whole system. The whole system, the difference is what? You can run the code. And for example, SIS system in University of Bahrain, you can run the code. It's beautiful. But why when you run the system, you have a problem? Because you have many students. You don't have enough bandwidth to handle all that big numbers of people entering at the same time. So you have a bottleneck. Bottleneck, that means you have a large database, but there is a bottleneck, a very thin place within that whole process where you cannot have this big amount of data flowing through. So you have a problem with the system. So you also need to test the system. And of course, finally, you're going to use the system. Now, that looks beautiful. But by the way, there are other concurrent processes that also happen at the same time. So you need to buy the hardware that supports the whole system here. And that is where you need to, it takes you about, for example, 5 days to buy that hardware. Of course, hardware is easy to buy. I mean, it's not a big deal. And then when you buy the hardware, you install it. And after you install it, you write the manual of how to use this hardware and how to maintain it. And then you train the people of how to use it. And after you train them, they use it. Fine. If you see the calculation of time, here we have 5 plus 5, 10, plus 15, 25, 30, 40. So you're talking about, without the 10, if you forgot the 10, we are talking about 30 here days. However, if you go to the other side, we have 10, 20, 30, 50, 60 days. Now, if you compare the 60 days with the 30 days, definitely, even if people are trained, they still cannot use the system. They cannot use the system. Why? Because the code or the system is not ready yet to be used. Which means here the critical path that I'm going to be talking about, it's about 70 days. And from 1 to 11, we are talking about 70 days. And it cannot be less than 70 days when you put it in place, even though that it doesn't take you much time to buy the hardware and install them and so on. Now, there are something that IT people tricks they use where they try to have some kind of dummy activities. Dummy activities, that means you're trying to make the process faster. يعني why should I write the manual and train people? خلاص يعني I use something that is ready from the system or from the code. This is what they try to do from the code, and they test it directly with the hardware. So they have some kind of a diversion here where they do a dummy activity, which may save them some time, But again, you're not really saving a lot of time. Why? Because your system is not ready yet, except after 60 days. Only if you're going to take a test code here, which is after 30 days or 40 days, and you're trying to test it with the within a dummy activity. And this just reflects some problems that could happen in future and supports your decisions. So again, so you can see that how with the arrows and the activities that I have here at the top, and the number of days that I have here, and the nodes that I have here, how they are important. Now, talking about the numbers, how do you do your numbers? Usually the numbers, they come in sequence. And I should put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I could continue here. But they decided here to put 2 and 3. And the reason is that they go back to the number of days. Like, when I go from 1 to 2, I will not go to 3. I already have something that I have done, which is buying a hardware. So this reflects that the activities that I have after number 2 are already buying a hardware before I program. So by this way, I can look at the activities, what I'm doing one by one. I'm doing a schedule. I'm programming. I'm creating a set schedule while programming. I'm also buying a hardware. I'm also then testing a code. You see, testing a code comes later. So I install, and then I have part of my installation. I have something which is aside before I do number 8. Oh my God. Okay, so this became more complicated than I thought. Okay. So that means they do number 6 and number 7 before they go to number 8, which also makes it more complicated here. Why? Because we are going to have more days. We're going to have more days rather than for me explaining to you that this was in sequence and it looks like 60 days. Actually not. It is 10 plus 20 plus the 5 here, which come in sequence. Now, and there are things which, if you put it in sequence in series, you add them. But if they come in parallel, you may deduct some number of hours, number of days as well. Oh, beautiful. So again, directional arrows represent dependent tasks. That means the tasks will not happen expect when you finish one of the tasks. Diverging arrows like 1 to 2 and 1 to 3 indicate possible concurrent tasks. That means I can do this and I can do this. Diverging, that means I don't have 1 to 2 only. And for example, 2 to 4, there's no divergence. But from 1, I have 1 to 2 and 1 to 3. So it's diverging to 2 different tasks, which means that I have a concurrent tasks. So I have this task and this task, which means I can do them at the same time. Dotted line indicates dependent tasks that do not require resources. Okay, and now when it becomes more complicated, sometimes you put these dotted lines just to show that you don't need to do something additional. There's no process that you need to do. So there's no process within this dummy activity, and there's no process after the installation to test the code. Okay, so you don't have a process that you need to specify there. So that is one of the examples. We have more examples, yes, more examples, simple ones. I gave you a very complicated one. Now I can give you a simpler one, and then we can open open for all of us to discuss and see if you have any questions. Okay, number one. So you're forming the green productivity team, whatever it's. And forget about the name, but it's just a name. Okay, the GP team. You're going to assign responsibilities, and after you assign responsibilities, we have a project, and within this project, we want to do a survey. So how you're going to do a survey? Conduct a walk through survey. So this is how they're going to do it. They're going to walk between people and do the survey. Draw an economic map of facility. Identify properties by significance. So they're going to do three concurrent activities here, and then they're going to sit together and they come and brainstorm ideas. Hani, why did I show you this diagram? I just showed this diagram just to tell you, it could be as simple as that, the activity diagram. It could be as simple as that. But here, it doesn't show it shows the nodes, it shows the arrows, but it doesn't show the number of hours that they need to do each one. It's very obvious that they can't do this all on the same day. But the thing is that if one takes 5 hours and the other one takes 1 hour or 2 hours, so all of those people who are sitting here down, they need to wait for the people who are sitting at the top there to finish their walkthrough survey, because the walkthrough survey takes a lot of time. It could take 4 to 5 hours to walk between people and ask them and taking many different ideas. However, sitting together, doing the eco map of facility, well, it still could take some time. It depends on how deep that could be. But you always have, I don't know if you did this before, if you distribute tasks to 3 different committees and you tell them we are going to see you after 5 hours, some people will come after 2 hours and they need to wait 3 hours for one of those committees to finish their job. But if you don't have the time written here, you can see how that would affect your process. This really would affect your decision, your planning. As part of your planning. And why do we do this activity network? It organizes our work as a project, but it also tells us that I can improve this process. But if you don't put the time, it makes it more difficult for you to decide how to improve the process. Things get more complicated. It could get more complicated when you have a task within the process. It is related to another task, something like that. Okay, so task 2 to task 3. So what I'm trying to say that it may get more complicated, as simple as that. Again, if you want to look at this, it has a start and it has an end. The tasks or nodes, they are shown as rectangular boxes. The start and the end are usually represented as oval shapes. Okay. And these are the predecessors. Adult predecessors is called. And if you want to relate them together, task 4 to task 5, so task 4 is a predecessor and task 5 is a successor. Okay, so task 4 is a predecessor to task 5. So task 4 is a predecessor to task 5 and a successor to task 2. So task 4 is a successor to task 2. Okay, واحدة. So the first one is a predecessor and the next one is successor. Now this is a predecessor, this is a successor. Okay, so these are just words. I'm not going to ask you which one's the predecessor or a successor. I don't think so. I will ask ever a question like that. I will ask more about how long it takes from the start to the end, and if we can improve the process. So those kind of questions I may ask, or yes, those kind of questions I may ask, or a case study. It will always be a case study, which is simpler. And within the case study, I ask you to draw a process from till the end. But I need to give you something that you already have in the university. I will think about it. And it's okay. We have time for writing our case study. What else do we have here? Arrows show dependencies, which means task 3 depends on task 1. So that's simple. Task 3 cannot begin until both task 1 and task 2 have been completed. So we have task 3 here. It depends on task 1, and it's very clearly and obvious that also depends on task 2. Now, looking at another example that has some more details, and here I'm talking about something related to a computer institute that has students. Today يعني I can see that يعني I gave you many numbers يعني دار راسكم شوي سامحوني. So what do I have here? I'm starting here and I'm ending when the end here is written done. Oh my god, this is very confusing. Okay, is very confusing. A problem with this figure is one thing. It's not a problem, but يعني it's just a convention. Convention is that sometimes the nodes are used as circles. It's more popular to be using it as a rectangle. It's very popular. It's not it is that they use it as a rectangle, but it happens that people they feel that sometimes the circles are much easier to draw. It's just a feel. Okay, so I don't mind. I don't mind if you're going to use a circle or you're going to use a rectangle. So whatever you want to use is fine for me, because there's more than one convention, which is different from process maps. Process maps is something different. You're going to take after a few weeks. It's something different. I'm talking here about the activity network only. Now, I'm going to start my computer institute, and I'm going to read it fast. Decide the location. Location had been fixed. I'm signing a lease agreement. And when I sign the lease agreement, the agreement is signed. And because it's signed, I can now start and paint the interior. After I paint my interior and it is ready, I can put my furniture. After I put my furniture, I have my institute furnished. خلصنا. After I have my institute furnished, I'm going to, this is what I want actually, but I need people to be working now. Okay, not only people working, I need my courses to be ready. I need students as well. You see, like I cannot start the batch, which is the end of my process. I cannot start it except if I have courses and I have students. So once I do my agreement, you can see that how the arrow is important here. Because if you decided for a moment, decided for a moment to start after your institute furnished, to start your advertisement. So if you decide to do your advertisement here, sorry, I don't have my pen with me. It's in the other room, Annie, but I cannot go to the other room now. So if you're going to start here in this place and you do your advertisement, how much you're going to be late? You're going to be late, definitely. So you're going to save a lot of time if you're going to start where? If you're going to start in this node where you have, when you have the agreement ready, and before you start painting, you already know that خلاص, يعني, you have your place. You can start advertisement. And you started the advertisement is displayed, and then it takes some days for the students to register. And of course, the enrollment is very straightforward. You just open the enrollment, and it's just one day for people to come in. Okay, so so the enrollment really doesn't take much time, but it will take more time for you to do your painting. Okay, sorry for that. So it will take more time for your painting. which means 3 days for painting, 20 days for furniture, and so on. Even furniture, for fixing the furniture, it could be less, by the way. Why? Because you can have planned the furniture much more earlier. You can see that how much we can improve this process. If you have this diagram, you can improve your process before ahead of time. Now, let's see something else. I don't only want students. I want students, and at the same time, I want what? I want my courses to be ready. And to have my courses ready, I will buy a computer. I will install the software, prepare the course syllabus. Now, should I prepare the course syllabus after having the software installed of Microsoft, or I can prepare the course syllabus beforehand? So you can see that there are many things that we can have them in parallel. And I changed this arrow network just to make things faster and better. And you can see that this path takes 19 days, and this path takes 9 days, and this path in the middle takes 29 days. And at the end of the day, I cannot start my batch except after 29 days. Even though that I have my course syllabus ready and within 19 days, and I have my students who are going to join my institute within 9 days. But still, I cannot do anything. I cannot start my batch except within 29 days. So these are examples. As I said, the way that of how I do my analysis, I just started criticizing. And so I'm using the PERT technique, in which I'm trying to be optimistic, expecting, pessimistic, it will acts optimistic, and looking at the differences, the timing. So this is my PERT technique. Critical path is that I'm trying to find the easiest path, or not the easiest path, but I know how much time it will take me. And sometimes the path is the shortest, and sometimes it is the lowest. In this case, it takes 29 days. So my ideas of having less time for advertisement, and saying that, well, and for example, I start the advertisement here. I could start that for advertising after institute furnished. La wallah, I cannot, because it will be too late, and it will be more than 29 days. And for this reason, it's better to do it before in hand. Well, can I advertise before, after I have my location fixed? The answer could be no, because maybe I'm not sure about my place. I'm going to sign the agreement, because if I advertise, I'm going to advertise for the place where they're going to study in, and I cannot advertise for the place before I sign the agreement. And this is why I started later. I'm just explaining, and this is all part of the critical thing. And the last slide I have here is to understand this whole process. I try to get everything together in one place, all of what I have explained. I'll just do a quick read. Anyone scheduling a project hopes to deliver it in the shortest possible time. Fine. That is the aim, to do it in the shortest possible time. But the critical path time is always the longest, even though that my aim is to do it within the shortest possible time. The most critical date in a project is the last date at which it can be completed without jeopardizing the program on one of the more major tasks. Okay, so for example, critical path analysis, we already took examples. You want to look at those examples, please have a look. Implementing the critical path, it is a method of planning and implementing a complex project that has concurrent and current, that takes into account sequence of activities that occur for its successful completion. One of them depends on the other one, successor and predecessor. Inevitably, then unexpected occurs, and the critical path analysis must be revised. So we are going to revise the process to make it better. What are the key takeaways? The critical path is the longest possible time. That's what we said. A critical path analysis details every task in a project and how long it takes to finish. The analysis must consider dependencies between tasks. So you need to put dependencies. Why? Because you need to say that you cannot do this task except when you do the tasks which is predecessor, which is before it. The analysis is used to track a project from start to finish, the whole project that you try to do. Of course, today people use the critical path analysis through a software tool. For example, Microsoft projects, they do have something like that. A Microsoft project, they support this kind of analysis where they can undergo the critical path analysis. That's all for today. Any questions? Sorry for taking some more time. Any question? I hope it was interesting. Yani, it's something different that you have taken, and I hope it was good. Okay, يعطيكم العافية. Thank you very much, and sorry for not allowing anyone to talk a lot today. Yani, it was a pretty long lecture. If you have any questions, you still open for you next time, inshallah, at the beginning of the lecture. يعطيكم العافية وشكرا جزيلا ونشوفكم على خير إن شاء الله. مع السلامة.